everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Meredith Phillips. I'm a writer, reader, and bunny mama, and today I'm going to be doing the writing mistakes tag. This is an old tag, so keeping in line with my love of trying to bring back old tags, I guess. This tag is from Bethany Atazada and Emily Bourne. I will link to Bethany's channel. She doesn't have this particular video up on her channel anymore that I could find. Emily Bourne does still have the video up, so I'll link directly to this video on her channel, but definitely go check those out. But this tag is all about the writing mistakes that we've made as writers. I do want to say though, I don't want this to come off as like, man, I was so stupid when I first started writing. What an idiot. I was a beginner, right? You're gonna make dumb mistakes as a newbie, but like you're supposed to. Any new thing you start, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna have to try things multiple times before you get it right. You shouldn't feel bad when you make mistakes when you're first trying something. That's what I'm trying to say. So here are some of the mistakes I have made. The first question is, what mistakes have I made while outlining? This is one of the ones where I still do the same thing, and it's really dumb because I have done this multiple times, and every time I do it, I'm like, okay, next time we really need to fix this. The mistake I make while outlining is that I don't really finish the outline very clearly. When I get to like the third or fourth act, kind of depending on how I have it structured, that last act is almost always very vague. Like things just work out in ways. The end. Usually the reason that happens, I think, is because I've worked really hard for usually several weeks on the first act and then the middle of the story. And then by the time I get to the end of the outline, I'm kind of ready to be done with it and I'm really eager to start writing. And so I just sort of rush through the last couple scenes or the last ending portion, which is not good. Well, my thought process is when I'm doing that is I'm like, oh, I'll figure it out while I'm writing and then I'll just be able to write the ending and it won't matter that I didn't really have it clearly outlined before I started. But then I get to the end of the story and I don't know how to end it. And so usually my endings end up being very convenient and just everything works out. Wow, kind of, which is not satisfying, obviously, as a reader. I need to take more time on the ending portion of my outlines for sure, because they're always rushed and too convenient and too easy a solution to whatever the issue was in the story, and then I end up just screwing myself over during the first draft process. The second question is mistakes I've made during the first draft. So for this one, I'm going to focus on the very first book I ever wrote, which was actually exactly 5 years ago. April 2016, I sat down and started writing a YA fantasy novel because that's what I was reading at the time and I loved YA fantasy and that's the kind of ideas I was getting. I had the idea on April 1st and it was just like this explosion of things. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta write all this down. So I took maybe 2 days to just write all of these notes about the story and the characters and the plot and like the world, the magic, like all this stuff I was thinking of. And then by like day 3, I was like, I'm gonna start writing this. I have definitely done enough prep work at this point. And the problem, the biggest mistake I made during the first draft, there's actually 2 big ones. The first mistake I made is I hadn't decided on what POV to tell the story in, whether I wanted to do first person or third person. And I thought, well, I'll just start writing and however it comes out will be the way it's supposed to be. And so I started writing and it ended up coming out in first person and I was like, great, okay, first person, da, da, da. But then I got like, I don't remember, maybe 2/3 of the way through the draft and realized this sounds really clunky. I don't like it. I want to make it third person. So I switched, like I just started writing the next scene in third person. I was just like, I'll fix the rest later, which if you've ever tried to fix even just one paragraph, switching it from first to third or third to first, that's a lot of work. You basically have to rewrite the entire thing. I didn't really think about that. I was just like, I'll fix it later, it'll be fine. So I started writing in third person and I finished the draft in third person. And so that was a big mistake. I should have tried to decide what I wanted and carefully consider which would be best for the story before I even started, but I didn't know to even do that. So that was a disaster. The other thing that I really messed up on was the setting. When I first conceived of the idea, it was very much like the stereotypical YA faux medieval Europe kind of setting with castles and horses and swords and that kind of thing, which is fine. Not a problem. A little overdone maybe. So I started writing in this faux medieval Europe setting that everyone loves to write in. And I got like a third of the way through, maybe halfway through, maybe, I don't remember now, but I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, everyone writes this. Everyone writes with the kings and the castles and the horses and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, mine is going to be different. So I decided the obvious choice for a different setting would be like an American Wild West style setting. And so I just switched the setting. Like literally in the middle of the story, I was like, okay, now we're in the West. Cowboy time. And so I started writing in cowboy times, and then I realized that in the Wild West, you don't have swords. I mean, I guess they had swords. Typically what you think of is guns. And so the characters then had guns, and I didn't like that. I wanted swords, but I couldn't make it work with swords. So then I was like, never mind, we'll just go back to Europe times. And so then I switched it back to Europe times. Oh no! I almost knocked over my water on my keyboard, so that's fantastic. Sorry, I don't know when that turned off. Okay, we're good. Back to the video. So yeah, I flipped the setting back and forth twice, and you really should decide on the setting, at least the general setting for a story before you begin. Number 3 is the mistakes I have made during revision and editing. I do want to share my personal definition of revision versus editing. I know some people use those terms interchangeably, and to me they're very different. For me, revision means bigger structure kinds of changes. You're changing aspects of the plot, you're reinforcing character traits or character arcs, you're trying to incorporate the theme better, something like a big picture sort of stuff, right? Editing to me means more of a line detail. I'm changing out individual words, I'm fixing the punctuation and the grammar and like that kind of stuff. So really in my writing journey so far, I've done a lot of first drafts and I've attempted to revise a couple projects. I really haven't gotten to the stage yet where I'm doing that really specific line editing type stuff. I'm very excited to get to that part because I think that will be fun. So for this, I'm going to basically focus on revision, the bigger picture kind of stuff, because that's what I have experience with so far. Okay, so my biggest problem with revision, and I've found revision to be very difficult so far. I'm finding it a little easier each time I do it, but it's a difficult process for me at this point. The biggest mistake I think I make is I spend way too much time trying to plan out how I want to revise something. It's like I have this messy draft, and instead of getting into the draft, I'm building this scaffolding of revision ideas around it, but I'm not actually doing anything to the draft. And so I do, I re-outline things, or I'm making notes, in which if you've seen my vlogs, like that's a lot of what I'm doing right now. I'm making the same kind of mistake. And I mean, I think you do need to do some of that work. Certainly you need to kind of think about what you want to change, but at a certain point, you just need to dive in. You need to start deleting things, adding things, re-outlining things, actually doing the work. So yeah, my biggest mistake with revision is delaying the poking and prodding of the actual draft. Number 4 is the mistakes I make with time management. So I actually have a video coming on this either in a week from when this posts or 2 weeks. I'm gonna do a video on managing your time, finding time for writing, and that kind of thing. So be looking forward to that. If you haven't already, go ahead and click the subscribe button so that that'll pop up in your inbox if you're interested in that when it goes live. But my biggest mistake I think with time management is promising myself that I'm gonna do stuff tomorrow, or I'm gonna start on Monday. It's Friday, we'll just wait until the new week starts. I'm always promising that my future self is gonna do double time work or extra work, or we'll start that next week or next month kind of thing. You can start now. I can start today. I don't have to wait for Monday. I don't have to wait for tomorrow. I can start today. So yeah, I think for time management, the thing I do is I promise to do stuff later, and I can just do it today. I don't need to wait. Number 5, my biggest newbie writer mistake. So as I started writing my first draft, I was reading a lot of information on writing, on publishing, on a whole bunch of different things. I was just like inundating myself with information. And one of the things that I started to see over and over again was that a lot of times writers will write multiple books, 5 books, 10 books more before they get one that is really solid and it gets them an agent and gets them published and all that kind of thing. It's a difficult skill to learn, and it's not one that you can just write one book and it's going to be amazing for the vast majority of people. And as I was writing this first draft of this first book, of this first idea I'd had, I thought my idea was so good. It was so unique, and like nothing else was out there like this, and my writing was chef's kiss amazing, and it was fine even though I'd changed POV a couple times and I'd changed the setting a couple times. It didn't matter. It was, you know, we can fix that later. It'll be easy, and then I can basically be a New York Times bestselling author with my first book. That was a mistake, because no, that story holds a special place in my heart because it was my first attempt at writing, but it is trash. And there's no, oh my gosh, it's just a disaster of a story. My biggest mistake was assuming that I was going to be the special unicorn that would be amazing on her first try, and you know, no, of course not. Come on. Most of us, the vast majority of us, need a lot of practice before our work is going to be good enough to be at that sort of professional level, you know? So my biggest mistake was definitely overestimating my talent. And finally, number 6 is the biggest mistake I see other writers making. This was a hard one because I was like, I don't want people to feel like they're being called out. I think the biggest mistake I see people making is not having the self-discipline to sit down and get the work done. There's a lot of really fun stuff about writing, but a lot of the writing process is difficult. And in the end, it takes self-discipline to make yourself turn off the TV or turn off the game or get off your butt and go get on your butt in the chair and actually start working. It is a mentally taxing type of hobby or activity. It's not one that you can just sort of sit down and flub your way through. You really have to use some critical thinking and some mind powers to do the work. And I totally understand. Sometimes at the end of the day, you're just tired and you don't want to do that, or you don't want to get up early to do this work. It is work. It's not always super fun. And I see a lot of people who post videos, or they'll be on Instagram, and I'm sure Twitter is the same way, or they'll be like, okay, this month I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And they're like hyping themselves up, and then they post like one time about something, and then there's nothing after that. And, you know, then there's always excuses. And yes, absolutely, sometimes life gets difficult and you can't do it and you really seriously do not have time, and that's totally fine. I'm not trying to like call out that. No pressure there. But there's a lot of times I think where you're just not making time for it. You're just not pushing yourself to sit down and do the work. And I'm totally guilty of that too. I'm not saying that's not me. I make the same kind of mistake and the same kind of excuses that I see other people making, for sure. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have to have self-discipline if you're going to make this work in the long run. So yeah, those are my biggest writing mistakes. I'd love to know, A, if you've done this tag or if you would like to do this tag. Absolutely, go ahead. Feel free to grab the questions. I'll leave them in the description below. I'd love to know your biggest writing mistakes, either ones that you made as a newbie or ones that you find yourself falling into the same trap of making over and over again, because we all do that for sure. Let me know in the comments what your biggest mistakes are. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content from me, I post videos on Tuesdays and Fridays, so make sure you click the subscribe button. You can also find me over on Instagram at Meredith Phillips Writes, and you can go over to my website, meredithphillips.com, to sign up for my newsletter. I'm filming this a little early, so I'm not sure if the Q2 newsletter has gone out yet, but if it has already gone out, you can still sign up for the newsletter and get access to that issue on the website. You'll get a little update on my writing process. I'm linking to various writing resources around the internet, and you get a bonus video with the newsletter. So I hope that sounds good. If it does, go sign up for it on my website. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Hey everyone. Whoa. Hey everyone. Let me get choked up on the first word.